You have heard that it was said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you that whoever looks upon a woman to lust after her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it from you. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it from you, for it is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. Okay, so let's take that apart a little bit. Well, you can imagine on your deathbed, you say, well, I've never committed adultery. And a rejoinder to that would be, well, was there anybody other than your wife who actually wanted to sleep with you? Because if the answer to that is no, then your virtue is irrelevant. It's just a matter of happenstance. And then you might say, well, no, but I wanted to sleep with someone else. And let's particularize that want. The want would be, it isn't merely that I found someone else attractive. It's that I knew perfectly well that if that woman had made herself available to me, I would have taken her, right? So that would be the real desire to commit adultery. It's not something trivial like merely finding someone else attractive. It's like, well, the rule here is the mere fact that the woman didn't offer herself to you for that purpose doesn't alleviate you of your moral failing. And that does seem to me to be an exacerbation of the law. And to the degree that the law can be transcended, it is only to be transcended when the spirit that gave rise to the law is making an even more stringent requirement. And that seems, I think that's reasonable.
I have never believed that he actually said this, and I have some, and I'll tell you why, and I have proof. So we have Greek scholars here, I am not, but I actually did look up, because you can with the Strong's Concordance. The word that he uses is not lust, it's covet. It's the same, and I know that because it's the same word as the 10th commandment. The 10th commandment, contrary to what many people believe, does not prohibit lust. It prohibits coveting. And there's an easy proof. You don't lust after a house. You don't lust after an ox. You don't lust after servants necessarily. And it's the same exact word. Covet means I want to take away. I want to steal. Right. I want to steal my neighbor's spouse, right, my neighbor's house, my neighbor's ox, my neighbor's anything, v'chol asherlo, and anything that he owns. Mm-hmm. Coveting another woman is bad news. That means I want to take that woman away because, after all, if she's not married, then adultery doesn't apply originally. Yeah. It applies if you're married. But let's say you're single. You're single and you covet a married woman, you have violated that law. So I believe that what he is saying is that if you covet her, it is as if you've committed adultery. And I would subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to the lust part.
How do you distinguish lust from covetousness, though? I don't understand.
Lust is an erotic reaction that is built in to males because of the visual stimulation that is built into males. I don't want to get in trouble like the
no. Fortunately, there's no prominent religious figures at the table.
Yeah, it's. You see, we religious people, we have to be real, otherwise they won't take us seriously. If a man has an erotic reaction to a woman, is not the same as wanting to take her from her husband.
That's fine. Everything in its proper place.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, so then, this is it. But this is big because a lot of people do believe he's saying lust, not covet.
He is.
And therefore, he is?
Yeah. I just think.
So the Greek word here is not the same as the 10th commandment?
The plain translation of the Greek here is whoever looks upon a woman, pros to epithumesthai, with, it's an infinitive, with lustful intent. With epithumo is a kind of to deep affect. It's lustful desire.
Wait,
yeah, but I think
so it's more than mere desiring.
So the Greek is not one verb like it is in English, and it's not the same verb as the 10th commandment?
It's a verbal phrase, so it's a preposition pros, for, with the purpose of, and then it's a I think it's an aorist infinitive. So it's whoever is looking, present participle, woman, gunaika, and then there's this verbal infinitival phrase with the intention for to.
Well, that's
desire.
coveting.
Right.
Okay, that's really closer to coveting.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not
The
merely
intent-
an erotic reaction.
Right.
The intent
Right.
is
Well,
Sorry.
so I want.
That's what I'm.
But it's
yeah.
important for religious people to know this because we sound like we're making a demand upon
Yeah,
people
got it.
that is unreal.
It's like never
Completely.
be angry.
And it doesn't put Jesus in it. Yes, like
Sorry.
exactly. It
It
doesn't
is.
put Jesus in a good light.
Right. Right.
It's not this is not prudishness.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But can
I
do
think
one
no.
thing?
I was agreeing with you. It was that's
Oh,
right. It's
oh,
slightly
thank you.
stronger
Okay.
than covet then. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
That's right.
John, Christ is a master at using short, mysterious stories. They change the listener who takes them seriously.
The person that you do not think could ever be virtuous. Well, let me show you. This is the person who is fulfilling the law and the prophets.
I don't believe in that promise. I'll just be honest on this point.
Then it hit me. I saw it.
This Jew is very frightened of a post-Christian society.
The power of love.
I don't want to be in a Hallmark card, I tell you.
We've got our work cut out for us, gentlemen. I sure hope we're up to the task.
Yes.
I'm glad we did this. I think Dennis made an excellent point about how people are, the perception about this. I'm not talking about optics, I'm talking about people paying a faithful attention. But I mean, I take it that Jesus is not saying the reverse. Like, he's not getting into the position that Kant gets into, that all that matters ultimately is the good intention, right? Because
That all that matters. Right.
yeah,
I
that's
agree.
Kant argues that in some way. I mean, I don't want to get into
think-
Kantian arguments, but there's at least people who read Kant that way, and it is a view that people have.
Yeah. The key difference would be for Kant, it's reason and reason alone, and reason that can't be contaminated by any desire at all, not even properly ordered, right, good desire, which is
Inclination and duty have to be separated
have to be
out.
complete,
Yeah.
which leads to all kinds of crazy consequences. Whereas this is completely different, although it starts from the heart, not the head.
So explain that difference to me just for a minute, because there's something important there, and there's the idea here, like for Kant, I find it preposterous that, well, if you saved that person because you loved them, then it wasn't a moral action. I find that a preposterous conclusion. Okay,
Yeah.
and we're in agreement
Yeah.
on that. Okay,
Right.
Now you're saying there's something else going on here. It's not just saying, right? You're saying,
Within the context of, say, moral philosophy, maybe the distinction would be between a cognitivist theory of ethics, which is a Kantian, which Kant's would be, and a non-cognitivist theory of ethics, which, say, Hume or Hutcheson would have, where moral judgment comes from what motivates a person, their affections, their passions, and it's not pure. It's not reason. It's not calculation. It's not.
Okay, but then that brings up the key thing from the Beatitudes. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. What is that purity of heart that you're talking about?
I think
A purity of
singleness
intent.
intention.
Purity of
Singleness
intent.
intention.
Yeah, that
it's your
upward
thing
aim.
about you're always aiming.
Purity
for-
of intent and desire.
Wait.
Yeah.
But I mean, many people have had maniacal singleness of attention, and I wouldn't call them pure of heart.
No, but he means
Right.
God, though. I mean, I
Right,
think
right.
implied.
No, that's okay. I see what you mean. Well, that's the Tower of Babel problem, right? That's the false idol problem. No, it's not. Pure single-mindedness is not. It has to be.
Hunger and thirst for righteousness, too. That's what you're hungering. You're thirsting for what God wills. And that's
So-
the one thing you want above all.
That single-minded aim has to be love, right? It has to be something like the wish that all things flourish. It's not any old single-minded aim, although there are intimations in the biblical text, which I hope we get to at some point, that having an aim at all is better than no aim at all, right? Because at least if you have an aim, even if it's off, you're starting to unify. There's some hope for you. But the aim has to be this upward manifestation that's associated with the highest possible form
So it's not just
emptying
aim.
sacrifice.
It's orientation. It's not just
Yeah,
aim. It's orientation.
It's orientation, and it might just be
Yes,
helpful to.
yes,
It might be
yes.
helpful to add that these.
Heavenly orientation.
It might be helpful to add that these are not prescriptively expressed. They're not expressed as commands.
That's right.
They're simply descriptive statements.
Yes.
They are exhortative. They're encouraging. They're providing an
Invitational.
example, and I think they are Christological. That is to say, I think all of the descriptions of what brings about a state of blessedness are virtues and conditions that Christ embodies and shows himself to be.
And there's
embodying,
also
as I said earlier.
there's also an aspect of this which is actually not. It's not just moral.
Yeah.
Because
you know, the idea that you have lust in your heart and that you entertain that lust, you become a slave to it. Everybody knows that happens, right? If you have anger in your heart and you entertain that anger, you become a slave to that anger. And Christ is saying, and that's why he says, you'll be in danger of hellfire. That's what hell is. Like, hell is becoming a slave of a passion that burns through you.
This keeps circling around.
And so it's
around again to, you know, it's love wisely, love wisely, love wisely, love wisely.
Yeah, that's right.
love
That's right.
wisely.
Yeah, I agree.
Logos agape, love wisely. Love
And
wisely,
here's
love
the
wisely.
standard to aim at, and this is the promise of.
So I have a dissent again, and I feel bad, but it's a loving dissent. I don't know that if you have anger, you become a slave to it necessarily.
No, that isn't what Jonathan said. It isn't that. It's the same issue. Anger per se isn't the issue. I mean, I don't imagine Christ was particularly happy when he chased the money changers out of the temple. But Jonathan's point was that if you dwell on it and you let it occupy you single-mindedly, if you let it take over, if you put your anger in the highest place, even for a moment, you become a
misdirect it.
servant, and then that can become habitual.
Okay,
When Jesus reacts to Peter,
I will say,
Jesus in the temple.
I have greater problems with people who are not angry at evil than I have people who are obsessed with anger at evil. And God says, or at least the psalmist says, those of you who love God must hate evil. It's a command.
Yeah.
Hebrew has a command form. If you don't hate evil, you don't love God. So
But it doesn't say hate evil. It says hate your brother.
no. I'm referring to the anger part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but righteous anger
Hating
is good.
evil and anger at evil are close to synonymous. Is that fair?
Say that again?
no.
Hating evil and being angry at evil. They're not you don't feel they're synonymous?
I think there's more sophisticated approaches to evil than anger. Although I would say anger is better than like a blind and oblivious neutrality.
Yes, okay.
Right. It may not be the highest. Okay, let's
The
go to this
problem
next
of the
verse.
human race is not too much anger at evil.
No,
Okay,
it's a-
I will say that.
It's a passion to set things right, and so it's imitating God. I mean, God's anger. My generation, we were taught nothing but like nice things all the time, and we never talked about God's anger, God's wrath. And as I started reading this book, finally, seriously, you can't go for 2 pages, Old Testament or New, without coming across the anger of God.
Right.
And so, therefore,
Or the
it can't
anger
be
of
a bad
Jesus.
thing.
I mean, it's less frequent maybe, but
Not in Revelation,
right. That's
where
true.
he's one harsh judge.
I would say the passion to set things right. Absolutely, we should burn with that passion, and that's righteous anger.
That's a dangerous
Can I just say-
passion, man. That's a dangerous
It-
passion.
yeah, right.
But it should also be
It is
turned-
it is
dangerous.
absolutely.
I agree.
You mentioned at the beginning of this session the common criticism that is emerging against Christianity from the kind of the neo-pagans, the Nietzschean vitalists, the Bronze Age perverts, and so on. That this is the Nietzschean claim of the transvaluation of value, right? This idea that the Christianity is simply a religion for effeminate weaklings. It needs to be something that is at the taproot of the civilizational crisis we find ourselves in. And I think that's partly because we are missing features like that of righteous anger, what Dennis is rightly picking up on, and also, the sheer difficulty of the moral life, and the fierceness of the Christian moral life that Jesus enjoins.
But how is that different
And
from
how
the
do you set
classical
things
idea
right?
from
He tells
Aristotle,
us
right?
here.
Aristotle said you have to be, it's not about being angry or not, it's about being angry at the right time for the right reason, to the right degree.
As Jesus is when he gets angry with Peter, he says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." As he gets angry in the temple when with the money changers towards the end of the gospel.
With the Pharisees.
With the Pharisees.
So it's ratio again, it's logos again.
Yes.
The proper proportioning of your anger.
And with so Christ is the avatar of fine discrimination, right? So you'd say
That's a bumper sticker.
so you'd say, well, you want to reserve your anger for the situations in which the only possible response is anger. And if you can manage anything other than that, then great for you. Let's go to this first, because it makes this case. That doesn't mean anger is never warranted. And it might mean that when it is appropriate for it to burst forth, it should burst forth as untrammeled as the rest of the lights, that you might hide under a bushel.